PETROC, experts and members of the public seating of council. A reminder, please can you all switch your phones to either silent or off. Please double check if you're not sure, because we do occasionally have the odd one or two that will bleep. This meeting is being recorded and will be available in due course on the council's YouTube channel. To ensure that those attending virtually and in person can hear the proceedings and for the recording to capture the entire meeting, please ensure that you project your voice and speak clearly. Please remember it's a formal meeting and therefore do not refer to each other by first names. When addressing council, please stand if you are able to do so. There is no fire alarm planned, therefore upon hearing a constant two-tone alarm, please leave the building via your nearest marked fire exit and make your way down the stairs to the nearest assembly point, which is the car park, I believe, round the corner. Lifts are not to be used, so those that will need them, someone will assist you. Please do not take time to pick up personal belongings and leave the building promptly. Also, may I also add that the toilet is, those at the back can go through that door to the left and this side, that door to the right, and they are gender neutral toilets. Thank you. Okay. Item 1, apologies for absence.
Thank you, Chair. I have apologies from councillors Biederman, Can, Youssef, D. Knight, Lovering, Whitehead and Tops, and possible apologies from Paul Parry.
Thank you. Item 2, to approve as a correct record the minutes of the meeting held on the 15th of March 2023 and the 18th of May 2023, pages 11 to 24. Do I have a mover?
Happy to move.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Thank you. All in favour? Anyone against? Any abstentions? Thank you. Right. Silence. Thank you. Item 3, Chair's announcement. Don't have any. Item 4, business brought forward by or with the consent of the Chair, a order of agenda. It is recommended that Council consider item 15 before item 10 on the agenda. Do I have a mover for that or an objection? Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Thank you. All in favour? Anyone against? Any abstentions? Thank you. So we'll take item 15 first.
Objection. I need to declare
Yes.
an interest.
Sorry.
Need to declare an interest.
Okay, thank you.
We're not there yet.
We're not there yet. Okay, so that's right. So, yeah, item 15 is.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the meeting, yeah. So we're going through right to the items 99 before we do 15. So item 5, replies to any questions submitted by the public and or to receive petitions under Part 4 Council Procedure Rules, paragraph 89 of the Constitution. None received. Item 6, to consider motion of which notice has been submitted by members in accordance with Part 4 Council Procedure Rules, paragraph 11 of the Constitution, to consider the following notion of a motion received from Councillor Walker. Would you like to know that?
Yes, I was approached by a board member following a visit to the recycling centre over the Easter holidays. Her vehicle is sign written because she is involved in a local youth charity. And got told that because the vehicle, although it's their private vehicle, is sign written, you have to pay to dump the waste that they have with them. This has been a policy brought in by Devon County Council since the change of management of the recycling centre. Now I understand you can get a certain number of passes if your vehicle is sign written to use the recycling centre for nothing. But there is a lot of people who run businesses whose only vehicle is their sign written vehicle. And this means that they are being penalised using the recycling centre, which from our council's point of view could lead to an increase in people putting unsuitable waste in their back bins or fly tipping. Therefore, I would ask that council supports this motion to ask for sign written vehicles not to have to prove that they are not a business vehicle to use the recycling centre. I've also noted that the government keep on saying that the recycling centre should not be charging for DIY waste, but nothing as yet has happened about it. Again, this is an area where if people can't dispose of their DIY waste for nothing, they're putting it in their backends. So that we can think that far.
Thank you. Councillor Ruth.
No, can I just declare an interest as a Devon County Council?
Councillor Lever, same.
Yeah, personal interest was county council.
Thanks very much. Councillor Master, same.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay. Do I have a seconder for Councillor Walker's motion? Thank you, Councillor Bell. All in favour? Oh, Councillor Bushell.
Sorry, Madam Chair, may I make an amendment, just a very slight one? There used to be a system where you could fill out a declaration form to say that the vehicle that you're using only has personal waste within that. So if there is a seconder for my amendment, I think it might be good if we just go back to that system, because it allows the flexibility of using somebody else's vehicle to take these to the trip as well.
I'll second that.
No, hang on. Okay, right, we've got a seconder on that one. Councillor Wood, would you like to explain?
Yeah, I mean, it's unnecessarily bureaucratic. I mean, why should somebody who, say, your local hairdresser who comes around in a little car have to fill in a form which nobody else has to fill in to declare that their car is not elderly people, basically?
If I may, I think that there's a level of flexibility, because I used to go down with people because they didn't understand the situation, and it might be that you have a neighbour who has a builder's van, but you're putting your stuff in there. So the declaration discourages people from breaking the rules rather than making it too open, but allows you to make a legal declaration that if they find that there are building materials that come out of a building van, that you are then liable for them. So the onus is then on the person to sign the declaration and just say, this is fine, and I'm saying that this is household waste. I think that it would be open to abuse, and more likely that County Council would like to listen to us if we just say, can we go back to the old system, which did work very well.
Councillor Lever.
Thank you. I mean, I think it's reasonable for us as a council to ask the county councillor, the county council to look at this issue. I don't think it's for this council to tell them how to do that. So on that basis, I would not be supporting Councillor Bushel's amendment.
Thank you. Councillor Jones.
I'd like to support Councillor Bushel's amendment. I think it makes an important point in the same sense that he can't propose this change entirely, because it was obviously open to abuse by businesses, and obviously that was put in place. So the amendment being proposed is originally based on methodological route. But I also support the point that this needs further discussion whether he's proposing something we need to look into.
Thank you. Right, we have a motion and we have an amendment. We'll take the amendment first. So we have an amendment put forward. We have a seconder for it. All in favour of the amendment? Can you please keep your hands up so they can be counted? Thank you.
11, 12, 13, 14, 16.
Thank you. Anyone against? Please put your hands right up, please, so we can see them.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11.
Any abstentions?
So that was carried. So this, I think there's an abstention there.
Yeah, one abstention.
So
Two abstentions.
so the substantive motion becomes the motion on the paper, but with the amendment put forward by Councillor Bushel, and you need another vote on that.
Right. Now sorry, I'm going to have to explain that again.
So,
I'm tongue-tied you then. Sorry, I do apologise.
so the substantive motion, the amendment put forward by Councillor Bushel was passed.
Yeah.
The substantive motion is the motion that's on the paperwork in front of you, but with the addition of the amendment put forward by Councillor Bushel, which was to revert back to the declaration form. And so that's now the motion which you need to vote on. So
Right.
the Chair will now ask for.
So is everyone clear on that now? I'm clear now. Right, so those four.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26.
Anyone against? Any abstain? One against? Two against?
No,
No abstention.
What was it? 1 against?
How many against?
Thank you very much.
Any abstentions?
Abstentions.
Thank you very much. Carried. Item 7, declarations of interest. Members only need to declare any interest previously declared at committee and subcommittee meetings if the item is discussed at council.
Thank you, Chair. I have 2. Councillor Prowse, item 15, private water supply fees amendment. Disclosure of pecuniary interest as a private water requiring testing. And Councillor Trinos, item 15, private water supplies fees amendment. A disclosure of pecuniary interest, private water for a private water supply.
Thank you. Item 8, Chair's replies to any questions to the council by members submitted under Part 4 Council Procedure Rules, paragraph 10 of the Constitution, number C. Item 9, to agree the agenda between Part A and Part B. There's no Part B. So now we'll go straight on to item 15. So there's a couple of members who have to leave the room. Thank you. Private water supplies fees amendment report by Environmental Health Manager Darren Littlejohn into the hotspot.
Thank you. Yeah, Chair, members. Fairly straightforward amendment to the regulation of public water supply. Do lots of sampling all the time. Should I read it through?
Just the highlights.
Just the highlights, yeah. So we've got a legal duty to sample water supplies, ensure that the supplies are wholesome and potable. and that's under Private Water Supply Regulations 2016. The fees are published on the council website. They do require revision. The maximum fees the council can set are under the Private Water Supply Regulations 2016, and the current and proposed fees are in Annex B to the report. The recommendation is that the full council approves a simplified revised list of fees as set out in Annex B for the private water supply to replace those currently published on the NEC website. And the reason for this, the rationale for it, is that the customer is charged the most appropriate targeted fee for the service provided. The revised fee structure better reflects the actual costs of providing the service. The current ambiguities of expectations set from the outdated list of currently published fees are removed, and the potential for customer query complaint reduced. Okay, so costs basically are about laboratory costs. They are variable, and what we do that's quite unique in this council for other councils is we customise that. Some councils just charge a flat fee, and they just sample everything, and that's not good for the customer. So we can actually reduce costs for the customer by targeting what they need for their particular supply. So yeah, as private water supplies services are developed, sampling analysis has become bespoke to the individual supply, and our officers react to that and try to provide a bespoke service. This is a benefit for the customer, as many local authorities sample a charge of full bacteria and chemical suite for every supply on every visit. And we carry out targeted sampling, which saves the customer money. The proposed fees all fall within the legislative framework. There has been customer challenges regarding levy charges due to the outdated nature of the current fees. So that's worth pointing out. The main costs associated with the fees calculated in respect of the officer time, so direct costs on salary, employer's pension, all those on costs, national insurance contributions. Indirect costs are reasonable overheads such as office accommodation, ICT, all that stuff that goes with paying an officer and their time. So the maximum limit that council can charge is in Appendix A. The council's proposed fee structure is set out in Appendix B. As said, the fees are set out to recover officer time, so it is cost recovery, but also any direct charges from the laboratory related to targeted sampling, so there may be additional costs, and that's highlighted in the amended published fees to be published, should you approve. And they are set to be non-profit and recovery costs, so that's the key point. They're not profiteering here. A customer consultation would normally be considered. However, the proposed change only affects the risk review fee, which is £135 to increase to £204. Effectively, there's no difference between a risk assessment, full risk assessment, which is done initially on the supply to give it a risk category and decide how often we should go back based on this, and a risk review. So it's the same process, effectively. So the £135 doesn't reflect the real cost. So what we're suggesting is to move that up to £204. All other fees remain unchanged. The proposed changes also clarify the charging for analysis of samples as described in 4.4 above. There are no resource implications expected. There will be a slight increase in income. And our records show that over the last year, January to the end of December 22, we undertook 409 visits, and 372 of those were risk reviews. So, we're missing a few pennies there. No problems on the quality assessment, environmental assessment. Corporate priorities is positive, not negative. In terms of the commercial agenda, I know there are issues with item 9, 10. And you'll see reference to the background papers that we use there, which is local government, Association current guidance and BS guidance as well. So if we just take a look at Annex A then, so this is as was. You can see that risk assessment could be up to £500, so we're not charging anywhere near that. And then the amended fees, exactly the same, but we're saying risk assessment, the new risk assessment would be £204, and so would a risk review. So you've got the original published fees above the table, B2 below that. B1 is the original in Annex B, and then B2 is the proposed fees. So the only change is risk assessment generally would be £204, and then there's a caveat there with no 1 and 2 with extra charges for specific sampling. Right. So that's that. Take questions.
Councillor Roux.
Madam Chair, this is what it costs the council. We recoup what it costs. I propose a recommendation as set out in 2.1 of the report.
Thank you. So I have a second there. Thank you. All in favour? Anyone against? Any abstentions? Thank you very much. Thank you. Right, we will now go back to item 10. Go back to the page, which is LPA Commander Police Update Superintendent Toby Davis to report. Would you like to come in the hotspot?
Yes, yes, please. Yeah. Good evening, everybody. I was still at the back of college then, sorry, wasn't it? Part of the reason coming along, in honesty, is I was trying to get a bit earlier, was because I thought there'd be quite a lot of new faces. I can see an old small faces, but post the elections back in May, I want to come and introduce myself, just explain a little bit about what we do, and equally, because I think we come into contact sometimes, and not in a good way, obviously. I would suggest, but so congratulations those who remain, congratulations those that are now in post. But if you don't know me, Toby Davies, I'm the local policing area commander for North and West Devon. So I cover right down from Tavistock up to the margins of Linton, and we're broken into 4 sectors. The 2 sectors that are relevant to you: Barnstaple sector, which is Barnstaple town and some of the surrounding villages. Then North Devon sector, which is Warrington, Ilfracombe, South Bolton, and some of the surrounds towards Exmoor. You've got Andy Wills as an inspector in Barnstaple, and you've got Rich Preston as an inspector in North Devon sector. Now, I haven't got time to explain the complexities of policing, but I can assure you there's lots and lots of different departments, from our armed response, our road traffic, dogs, intelligence units, but the bulk of the teams are in three main areas. So you've got your patrol officers, the ones that are responding to the 999. They're investigating, I would say, the lower level crime. You then got your investigation team, which is investigating your priority and higher end crime. And then you've got the neighbourhood beat teams, which many of you will hopefully come to contact with. That would be your neighbourhood beat manager, your police community support officers, and they're much more about engaging. It's about problem solving and visibility. So if any of you are on an open offer, if you want to understand it a bit better, or you want to understand a little bit about your own area, what's going on, contact me. We can see if we can go out for a ride along. There's a few forms you've got to sign, just to check out all's okay. But you can come along and just get a bit of an understanding of what's going on. And the difference between 3 o'clock in the afternoon on a Friday and 3 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday night as well. So, and to those of you, I'm not going to bore you again, but look, we are lucky, and I'm sure many of you are down here, and people are down here because this is one of the safest areas in the country. So, when you look at crimes per head of population, Devon and Cornwall is one of the safest. This is one of the safest areas within Devon and Cornwall. Yes, there are pockets of issues that we have, but it is a safe place, and crime has been falling in the last 12 months. We've seen some reductions in our area as well. And when you look at sort of public confidence figures and other data, it's really, really positive around how people feel about policing. And we've got lots of transferees down here who can't quite get used to where they come from, the difference in the fact that most of us live on patch, care about the patch and want to do well from the patch, and actually your community back you up. And one of the other areas that we're strong on is around outcomes, and that's with a supportive community. You tend to catch people who are doing the things they shouldn't be doing, and our outcome rate is actually the highest in Devon and Cornwall and one of the highest in the region, particularly around our priority crime. So domestic abuse, sexual offending, rape and serious sexual offending is some of the highest in the area. But it would be fair to say that doesn't mean we don't have our challenge. I think it's probably no secret Devon and Cornwall is in what we call engage with Her Majesty's Inspectorate. So same as the Ofsted schools. There were 3 areas they picked up last year, and they spent the next 12 months working with Devon and Cornwall to see those improvements. Now, to those areas, how we manage dangerous offenders, the volume of work our officers had around that's been addressed in a much better place. How we recording crime, I said it last time, they came here and looked at how North and West Devon recording crime, we wouldn't be in the situation we're in, and we're in a reasonably good place, force of improving. The other area was around contact, and I don't think I've been to a public meeting where somebody hasn't mentioned 101 or trying to get through. Things are getting better. It's a lot of work. It's really complex. Nothing's perfect. There's a single online home, which is a different way in which you can now contact through to the police. And I guess a really positive for up here through the work of the PCC is we've got some public inquiry front offices opening. So we've got Barnstaple. We always have had Barnstaple. Ilfracombe is opening in the next few weeks. So there'll be a public inquiry office up at the Ilfracombe station. Oakhampton, just off patch, but my patch is going to have a front office. And Bideford, Torridge is an area I think that's probably the one that I think they're keen to explore some options there. The other thing, just obviously a positive, is the uplift. Is that we have seen, Devon and Cornwall has now seen 600 new officers into the force over the last 3 or 4 years. And I did share it last time. I mean, there's 2 sides of that. It's a real positive. We have got a very young workforce. I mean, 2/3 of what I have on my response teams are student officers still. So I walk into the station, I'm starting to feel somewhat older, I have to say, but we have struggled in North West Devon. I don't know what it is. It's the same with other public services you speak to as well. We don't seem to get to attract the numbers. Like I always say, if you know people or you know officers elsewhere, where else better to work than somewhere like Northern Devon? Bring them down here. Anyone who wants to become a special volunteer, then we're open door, trying to attract people in. It's a great place. And the Chief Constable, we've got a new chief who started at the beginning of the year. He has made it abundantly clear that he wants to invest in neighbourhood policing as well. So I think one of the things that Devon and Cornwall has been really strong at is that relationship we have with the community and with partners to try and address issues. And I think if we go back 10, 12 years, there was a time where the austerity meant we did shrink those teams. The chief has made it clear he wants that investment back into that visibility. And in honesty, we have a police and we have a power, and that means we need to be proactive. And some people need to come in, and they need to come in. If we get them in early, it stops them going on to commit more serious acts. So there's a real push to push more people back into that neighbourhood role. So for the new councillors, one of the areas I know when I come to meetings, advocate meetings, public meetings, you tend to get from parishioners will relate to antisocial behaviour and that kind of the feelings of safety and perceptions of safety. So for me, I want to make it clear that is very, very, very much a priority for us here in policing. Now, I get there's the high end, there's lots of stuff going behind the curtain that not everyone necessarily sees, but it doesn't mean that we don't want to address and try and address that, because it has a real impact on how people feel and how safe people feel when they see some of the and the town centres. And we discussed this last time, I know, but the town centres, yours, Ilfracombe, Barnstaple, little bits within Bournemouth and South Molton as well, had seen post-COVID some increases around ASB, street attached, issues around evening nighttime economy, drunkenness, violence between women and girls, some sense of some of the open dealing that people perhaps see, and then just to feel that it didn't feel that safe walking around some of our town centres, and it's really important that as council I plead that it's not just seen as a police issue. Because if you see that, we react at the far end. To deal with these issues, we've got to work together, whether it's health, whether it's parents, schools, alcohol, drug services, loads and loads of people need to get engaged in that work. And I think one of the biggest successes of the last 12 months is related to safer streets in Barnstaple. Now it's not fully finished, I need to evaluate, but that was probably about 12 months back, and that was the funding the Home Office, the local authority then sought, and we've been working together, and there's been lots of stuff. I'm not going to go through all today, but from design, lighting, the street marshals, which I think have been really positively received, walking in around Barnstaple. We've got pop-up community hub stations, clear up town team trying to be developed together, CCTV, use of antisocial behaviour orders. There's loads of stuff. We'll get that data and we'll get it together, but the indications are that we've seen in Barnstaple a significant amount, 30% less ASB and around 20% less crime in that town centre. So it's not surprising if you put that energy and effort in, and actually it does have a lasting, I would suggest, impact. But we'll get that evaluation out, I would suggest, post-September when we actually get the back end of that and come back. But the other thing I'm just conscious of, we can't have safer streets everywhere. And one of the things that we are doing in the force is think a lot low key, and that is, well, I get my teams and force resources, and I'll suddenly say, right, we'll do 3 days, we'll concentrate on an area, and we'll just flood the area with a little bit more resource than we could perhaps normally put out. Now you might say, well, that's great for 3 days, but the truth is, when you put a team in for 3 days, and they go in there and they address a particular issue, and they're really visible, and they speak to everybody, it tends to have a lasting impact for like months going beyond as well. So it's a little bit about actually, let's look at some of the other areas, and we've doing that across the patch, putting out teams where there are particular issues. And if you've got a significant issue within your area, then perhaps speak to me or one of the inspectors, and it's one of the areas we can perhaps look to go next. So my final thing, just a plea to the newer councillors, is the number of times the council will come and say, this is a massive issue, everybody's complaining, the whole street is up in arms, and we'll go on the system and there'll be absolutely nothing on the system at all. We'll go to the council and say there's nothing in the council systems. People have to report. Some people try to use you as a reporting mechanism to bypass all the other systems, and we have to prioritise stuff. So just encourage, if it's an issue, report it and report it through the channels. It then builds the evidence. It's repeatable. That's how it builds the evidence where I can then prioritise resource to your particular issue. And the other one is just the obvious. You represent, you've been voted in your patches to represent that community. And I totally get, when I lose a councillor, I tend to lose the community behind it as well. So I'm really, really keen that if you've got issues, you've got concerns, come through those inspectors. If you haven't got the contact, I'll make sure that's circulated through on the to you all, or come to me. Your district level, that is a level I feel is appropriate to come to me, and I can then at least go and ask some questions of the team. So I want you to be felt that you're being kept on board. We're trying our best for your area. I can't promise anything. There's lots of competing demands, but please come through and give us a chance. Lose you, I'll lose the community. So for me, it was just a bit. That was it. It was a bit of introduction, a say hello, and I don't know if it's a question to say today or not. Is it?
Yes.
It is. Oh, okay.
One knowledge that I was was you come back with a couple of dates, because I know there's councillors and I know there's some staff at Barnstaple that would actually like to come and see the new police station themselves and whatnot, if that's allowed.
It's newish, but it might then there might be other plans for as well. So I'm not saying you can bring anybody out. I'd recommend. To be honest, seeing the station is one thing. Actually, is to go out there and perhaps see what different teams, see what everyone does. We're spread over quite a long.
That's quite good. Yeah. So I'll see if they want to come out on the night.
There was a day, wasn't there? We put quite a few councillors in a van, and went out, and it gave a bit of a surprise to go out and at 2 o'clock in the morning. You see things a bit different. I mean, some councillors may be out 2 o'clock in the morning already. I don't know, but.
Okay, Councillor Warden.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Just to say, first of all, thank you for all the work that you do. it's really appreciated in South Malton when members of the force actually come to, for example, Thursday market or a Saturday, and they're really well received by people as they walk through the market and chat to people, and that's really good for every reason. But the other thing I wanted to say is I do get a lot of complaints about the fact that the front desk isn't open in South Malton anymore. So I just wanted to put that on record because people in my area would really appreciate that, not just in the town, but quite a number of people from around the area, from Barrington and so on, keep on about it all the time. They read in the press about Ilfracombe getting it, and they're not very happy with South Malton.
Okay, no, it's a really good thing for Ilfracombe, and I get those always that the reality is there'll be other places will have a strong case. What I would say is I've been there. It's ultimately it's the Office of the Crime Commissioner's decision where they can go. I would encourage members, if you feel your community would see that benefit, to perhaps more formally record that, because they will build an evidence base up then and where they're getting those requests. So perhaps that's down to yourself. There might be other areas that might be asking the same question as well. It doesn't have to be full time, so it could be open for a couple of days.
That's right.
Exactly. There is just very quickly. It's not just a question of where the best community is. It also has to have the estate. So because we can't go and buy and build new estates, in some areas, the front office it's gone, and so it's not. So there is a bit, but they chose a little bit where it's very simple just to get it set up as well. I think she's got an aspiration to get them all done.
Thanks for pushing.
Good to see you again, Toby. I'd like to support what Councillor Wood has said about the front office, but I do understand that you might not be able to do that. What I would say is exactly the same as I asked of Alison Hernandez many years ago, is that we could follow the Scottish model where there is an airlock room, so a person can be let in, the door can be locked behind them, and then they can phone for the police. Because if somebody is in a domestic violence situation, it might be that they want to gather up their kids, run to the police station, lock themselves in, be safe, and then have that situation dealt with. Alison, her wisdom, she was very new, didn't think that was a model and didn't believe that the Scottish were doing that. But I think that would be a workable halfway house. And I'm glad that you've said if you lose your councillors, you lose community. People find it hard to get through on the telephone, so they report a crime online. There's a failure with trying to give the crime reference numbers within the given time frame, which is advertised on the website. I'm sure you can fix that. I'm sure you know about it. Gun licenses. You and I have sent many emails backwards and forwards, and I believe your hire's up. I don't know how the ranks work. Still a problem. Do you think possibly you could line the ducks up to get them to act on the scenario that we've run through them? Because there is a very great risk, and I know that a lot of other councillors have heard this, that we are going to have a lot of unregistered guns within the community. That leads nicely on to drugs. Particularly in my ward in South Malton, people are feeling uneasy about the prevalence of them and the ease of getting drugs. And also, I'm sure you're aware that there are a couple of deaths within very close proximity of one house in town. The residents surrounding that area, the officers went door to door. They feel that nothing has happened. That is concerning. If one house has got dead people turning up inside it or just outside it, and I think perhaps we could have a crackdown there.
Okay, generation games. I remember each one of those points. I think the first two noted. The third one, look, the firearms licensing. I get it, but I think it's probably recognised after what happened in Plymouth a few years back. There has been a complete and utter national change around how firearms licensing, how license is given. That has meant that there's been a significant additional pressure on those teams. And the timeline, it's a really, really long time. But I think people understand that actually they've got to get it right. It's more important than necessarily. So I do know that if it's a business, if it's commercial, it's prioritised. I know that in the middle of June, I think in those contacts we've had, they have changed the process from a certain date in June, which is now meant is expediting some of those. Well, you have to give it a chance. You have to wait and see. But the important thing is your noise and on behalf of your parishioners, that's gone through to the team. It's not my team, and I push it through to that team. And obviously, it's somebody the individual same rank as myself who's obviously running that at the present time. But drugs, yeah, I agree. Drugs pervade all society. It's a societal issue. We will concentrate on those areas, and I'm not going to talk specifics for obvious reasons. Areas where it's linked to ASB and it's linked to the whole community in that street and others are being impacted upon it. They are what they want to prioritise. We prioritise kids, schools, county lines, and those areas which are really something you just wouldn't have a clue. Wouldn't have a clue. The area that nobody even knows who the local dealer is. But where it's got issues such as that, then we're all over it. It's not just an arrest your way out of a solution. It's not simple as that. You know, you can arrest somebody, you can deal with that individual. You've still got to try to go on then to prove the supply elements and other elements. But we are working with the community and others on issues such as that. I know what you're talking about.
Could I ask that?
Sorry.
Particularly, you give a nudge on those last two again.
The fire licensing, I'm not, because I think you've made points and it's gone through the team and they are doing. I know they're doing the best they possibly can, and it is going to be delayed. They are going to be delayed unequivocally. If you get local license, I'm just going to be hands up. It's going to take some time to do. If it's commercial, it will be prioritised. But if it's leisure, it takes time. I can only apologise, but that's just the reality.
But can we keep to questions, please, and not statements? Thank you. Councillor Bell.
Thank you, sir. We've recently had in my place of work a number of very young police officers coming to assist us. They are
where do you work? Sorry,
at the hospital.
Okay.
And they are exceptional. They are incredibly good. Thank you very much for what they do. My question is though, with regards to visits to parish councils, as you say, councillors are a great way of passing information and communicating with the community, communicating to the police force. Unfortunately, in Braunton, and I believe this is the case in a lot of other parishes, we don't necessarily see police officers coming into parish council meetings, and that is we fully recognise that there are pressures on your service and they are very difficult. But as you said, councillors are a quantum of knowledge. We know a lot of what's going on in the area, and if we could have police officers coming back into the councils again, if that's something you could look to do,
okay.
I think many parishes would be very grateful.
Yeah, I'll be really open. I've got on my patch 150 parishes so I tend to come to this level, and the inspectors will go to perhaps some of the larger councils. We cannot get to every single parish council. It's impossible. However, I want every parish to know how they can access and speak to their local team. And if you have a specific issue, then you can then go to your local team to ask for them to respond to that particular issue. That's fine. The bigger councils, such as Braunton, in honesty, I would expect not every meeting, but I would expect every sort of few months for you to have an officer. If that's not happening, well, if that's happening,
That would be
well then you will, and that's the same for everybody. To be honest, if I don't want to say how less we do it, but we tend to grade the council depending on population size. So the bigger the council, the more likely you might get face to face. And Brendan, parish council, might be here or not there, but Brendan may not necessarily expect to see somebody every time. So it might be you do get one, don't you? Actually, that's a pretty random tree, wasn't it? But yeah, if there's other councils the same, if you feel that yours is a large enough council, you're not seeing anybody for some significant period of time, come to me or come to Rich Preston, the inspector in North Devon sector, or Andy Wills. But Bolton is what I would expect.
Controversial suggestion.
Sorry, can you stand when you're talking, please, Councillor Bell? Thank you.
Controversial suggestion.
Yeah.
That Braunton is bigger than Southampton.
Yeah. I know.
Right, Councillor Jones.
I'll echo Councillor Bell's request. I know that we had a similar situation in Macclesfield Parish Council. There was a series of issues. We couldn't contact our local team. There were issues trying to find who our local team was. Eventually, I think we found out that our local team to reference with is Linda, I believe. It's somebody that was based in Limbo at the time. That may not be different. But the point I wanted to ask was, so I'm in Woodbridge, in the south of the district. We've seen a spate of rural crime recently. And there's lots of anger and upset because the police reaction was basically nothing. People lost their businesses because they lost all of their equipment. Farmers have lost cords and all kinds of stuff. And over a short period of time, there was clearly a related amount of burglars. Is it that the expectation for rural crime is that there would be zero police reaction to it, zero response, and nothing but just giving the crime on? Because that's the perception now.
No, I know that can be the perception, and I think it's really important because I get that rural communities can sometimes often feel isolated. And I do get the sense that when there's a crime on a rural community, it has a different feel. If it's in a town centre, it feels a bit more vulnerable, don't you? If it's happening. And don't get me wrong, if there is any line of inquiry, then our teams will follow those up. The reality is people pick sometimes morality because actually it's far more likely that they're going to get away with it because it's not within the CTV, there's not within the witnesses. But we have lots and lots of campaigns around agricultural theft, rural crime. We have lots of campaigns around in evenings. Anybody travelling around those communities would like to get stopped and turned over. We've had a number of quite good results off the back of that. I accept. And if you're saying that your parish council have asked, did you ask for attendance?
This was historical. Well,
okay.
For this current incident, there was no investigation, there was no feedback from police. And
How do you know that?
That was what people.
Sometimes people say
he came to look into it first.
no. You give me the crime reference number. Give me the crime.
Yeah.
I will find out the number. I'll go back and look. Because sometimes it's said, but actually I suspect there would have been. If it's wildlife gone, that is not something that we just close off with nothing at all. There would be further inquiries like that. I'm not saying it's being detected or detectable, but there's stuff because it will tend to be travelling criminals that come in. It won't often be local. It'll be somebody coming in up country, and they tend to then target an area, and then they tend to take a lot of stuff out of an area, and then off they go. And sometimes it's about luck. It's about us being in the right place, right time, on the big road, catching the vehicle. Give me the crime number. I'll come back to you. If you give the details, and I'll check. I would be surprised there was nothing done at all. That can be a perception. I do get that.
Thank you. Councillor Davies.
Thank you very much. I didn't want to do any negatives, but
yeah,
we unfortunately had another fatal accident on the road. I don't know all the details, but I believe it was a young lad driving excessively fast.
Do you about last few days? Yeah.
And I had another one on the news. So it's really about what kind of education and speed awareness. I don't know, it's county and national level as well, but the incidence of road rage and speeding is hyper prevalent. And I think in particular when everyone is a little bit stressed and they're trying to eke out their existence, they're trying to support them. So anything that can avoid the needless death. So not a good, you've been coming out to the smallest jump, and you have been coming to the town hall week in, week out. Very well received. Thank you very much.
Walter, I'm not really happy. I'm gonna have to stop. I'm playing off the towns. Look, I was working that evening as well, and so sadly on our roads we have probably a disproportionate number of people who've got that type of road. Road safety is very much within the partnership. It's one of the priorities we picked up. Not necessarily for anything else other than, you know what, that's the most likely way any of us are going to lose a friend family. It's not for crime, it's going to be for road. So road policing teams have grown significantly in the last few years. If we had an austerity pared that back, it became more of a generic function. We have now got, it's not popular with everybody, but you've seen that two of those vans are now based up here in South Molton, and they go off to anywhere else. So every day there'll be that van and be positioned somewhere in North and West. And the one thing I would say, we have got the teams and the van, but we're not going to be everywhere at once. And anyone with a dash cam footage that's the type of stuff we're getting some of the best prosecutions of is somebody then submitting that online. It's really simple. It automates it into a statement. We can then take it to court. But for you as councillors, if you've got a community or a patch, it has to be assessed for safety. So community speed watch is an absolutely brilliant deterrent. It embarrasses drivers into not driving faster. If it's through villages, other locations, I would encourage. That road may not be suitable because it's a very fast road, but but community speed watch is an option as well.
It's another good point, but we're also doing the 20 to 20, which I think is the county-wide thing that everyone's trying to. Make it simple to change.
That'll be highways. Yeah.
Okay, we've got another 5. Sorry, we've got another 5 more that need to speak, and then I'm going to draw a close on it because we've still got a very long agenda to go.
Sorry.
Okay, no, it's not your phone.
Yeah, okay.
It's not your phone. It's every party. I'm only joking. Councillor Ruth.
I think one of the most important statements you've said tonight, I've been privy to some information on the actual crime reduction in Barnstaple. That the antisocial behaviour has come way down in some instances, a 40% reduction. And I think it's important to highlight that because some of the businesses are struggling in Barnstaple, independence, and the more we say that there's a lot of antisocial behaviour in Barnstaple, the more it puts off people coming into the town.
Councillor Ruth, you're going with the question.
Yes, this is the question. This is what's going to happen. What would you say has been the success that you've had in achieving that reduction? What's the main driver behind it? Is it working in partnership? I think it's really important that Barnstaple is a safe place, and there's been a lot of work done over the last 12 months, which has got that percentage really good results, and I'm looking forward to 4 September when we can publish them. Right, so what would you say is a success?
Yeah, I think you said it. I mean, ultimately, we've got the evaluation that will go through each of the different parts of the domain. There has been significant reductions and working in partnership. If you just left it to a single agency, do it on your own, it's because we brought everybody together, working together and creating I would suggest more of a town team feel. And the street marshals, I would have to say, make a significant difference. That visibility, walking around, or available to pick up some of those lower level issues has made a really big difference. I would say, and I think it's a really important thing. I live in the outskirts of Barnstaple, and for me, there is about creating a positive narrative, because the danger is most of the people that feel unsafe, it's not through the reality of being a victim of crime. They haven't even seen necessarily a crime. It's just a sense, a feel around them and the talk. And if we talk our town down, we make it unattractive. It makes it more of an attractive space for people that we don't want to be in the town. We want people to come in there, use it, vibrant economy, vibrant community. People use it in the evenings. So I'm with you. So I think I'm really keen that we, as partners, all talk about the town in a really positive way.
Thank you, Councillor Lever.
Ever so quick. Thank you, Toby. I'm the council's rep on the Community Safety Partnership, and can I just say it's a fantastic partnership because actually the relationships between organisations are so positive, and it enables a really good way of trying a problem-solving approach to working, which is really great. I was actually just going to reflect really quickly on the personal experience I've got as a councillor and a resident coming to me complaining about. There is a question. Coming to me, and actually anyway, but we reported it and we got a prosecution. But yes, keep reporting. My question was actually about, you were talking about the young age profile of the officers you've got, and I just wondered whether there is the issues which have come up before about the difficulty of people who come as trainees from outside the area trying to access housing, whether that has improved or whether that is something which is still an issue.
It is an issue. I can't pretend. I suspect that the local authority have had that with many different public services and many other people that need. So yeah, I've already, I think, shared examples of people who tried to come down here, thinking perhaps it'd be much easier to rent and then come here and I've struggled to do it. So yeah, it is an issue which I think makes us a little bit more difficult against some of the cities in the southwest where most of the young officers and transferees are going. Yeah, most of them live with mum and dad still.
Councillor Wilkinson, question please.
Thank you, Chairman. I was actually going to make a statement, but I'll turn it into a question.
Thank you. It's a question and answer, not a statement and answer.
Can we, this is a question, can we not lose sight of the fact that we, so I represent coastal communities, can we not lose sight of the fact that during the summer seasons, coastal communities swell in population to the sizes of towns that surround us? We've got to be commensurate with the amount of policing that goes on within them. Are we on track to provide that? There's two questions, Chair.
Thank you.
So a question, look, I can't, would I want what officers caught, if anything that they didn't, they wouldn't be taken, they would be fitting, wouldn't they? But the reality is we have got more officers than we had if you were to go back 2-3 years back. Do I want to attract more in? Because as you probably know, we are still with the 20,000 extra they talk about nationally, we are still as a force recruiting. And I would like to be an area that is recruiting more at a faster rate than perhaps some of the other parts in the southwest. So it is recognised. I think it's not really a question for me so much. You might be wanting to put that towards the crime commissioner and others or politicians. But I do know that they've only very recently been at Westminster arguing that it's all very well measuring us across the year, but actually you need to reflect the fact that the southwest has a huge population increase. And it's human people that from London, Manchester, Bristol, all coming down here, and they want to reflect the budget. My understanding is, and I don't quote on this, I think there was positive noises that they may reassess those calculations that come back. But that's not to be quoted because that's not me making the call. That's the noise I was hearing.
Thank you.
Thank you. And just two more quick questions now. Councillor Milton, followed by Councillor Master. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll try and be quite quick. Onto rural area by Councillor Jones, just based on a couple of comments from Councillors Jones and Bushel just now. Most of the crime that we're feeling there is that half the time small theft from businesses all the time, and it's increasingly repetitive. And there seems to be a time scale that's running through. There's a feeling within a lot of those rural communities that they're not seeing anything happen, principally because of the difficulty of reporting. Is there any way you can look proactively at ensuring that your phone system for online reporting actually gets answered within an hour, and your online one is not the mind-numbing experience that it currently is? I make both of those comments from personal experience as well.
I will feed that back to those who are discharged with trying to address some of the contact issues. I get it. I would say that actually I see a really big role for councils as well to explain to people how to report. There've been quite a few occasions where I say to somebody, and when you go back and delve into it, people haven't actually bothered to report as well. And I get it, got that sense, but actually it's really important that you do. Are you part of the South Bolton area?
Yes.
So you've got your sergeant he lives and breathes morality. He is a real sergeant. He's online all the time. He is bringing up the rural affairs team. There's loads of campaigns. The question is, he needs to have people to feed those stories, to feed that out to newsletters, to feed that out to your community. So perhaps again, if you make those, I can feed you those kind of contacts.
Thank you. That'll be quite useful. I think it would make it markedly feel markedly better if we could report it in a much and more streamlined manner.
HMRC agree with you. Hence why we've got a year in which we need to get that better. And that's, if we don't, obviously that's not going to be a great place to have a cobble. So there's a lot of work going on to try and address some of those causing issues. Understood.
And the last one, Councillor Master. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Just briefly, you didn't mention your council advocate scheme, which opened a couple of years ago.
Not mine, it's the PCC's.
Ah, okay. It's really, I recommend it to any of the councillors. It's a brilliant.
I should have, but you're quite right. So any of the councillors in here, if you want to join with the PCC's office and become a council advocate, you will then get to meet the inspectors that run those sectors. They will then hold meetings and you can get a lot more tactical around specific issues because they got to file their hand about the realities of what's going on their patch than I ever do. So join for the PCC's. Do you know how you do that? I should know this. Do you go on the PCC website to join?
There's a link.
So go on the website, get it. It's not politically aligned. It is anybody, everybody. the assessment inspectors will then meet up with you, and I come once a year and do like an annual thing. So as many as possible to join is a great thing. Sorry, I should have mentioned it, but it's yeah.
Lovely, thank you very, very much. I'll see you Friday.
Are you? Oh yeah.
Sorry.
Thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. If members don't mind, can we jump to item 17, the Barnstaple Neighbourhood Plan, by Senior Planning Officer Liz D, so she doesn't have to wait while we go through a load more stuff. Is everyone in favour, please? Yeah, thank you very much. Liz, would you like to take the hot seat? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So this is a report to consider the examiner's report we've received in the Barnstaple Neighbourhood Plan, and to make a decision as to whether to undertake a referendum. So as set out in the report, a neighbourhood plan is a statutory planning document, and it forms part of the development plan of the designated area. When adopted, it will carry equal weight to the non-strategic policy in the local plan. The decision to write a neighbourhood plan is at the discretion of the parish council. And when preparing it, there's set procedures which need to be gone through. These include designating the neighbourhood planning area, which is on the request of the parish council. The parish council is going to undertake community engagement and to draft a document which includes policies, and then for formal public consultations to take place, followed by an examination by an independent examiner. After that, there is, all going well, a referendum, and then finally the plan is made, which is when the local authority adopts the neighbourhood plan. So Barnstaple Neighbourhood Plan has reached the end of the examination stage, and we received the examiner's report on the 6th of July. So now it's for the council to decide whether to accept his recommendations and proceed to a referendum, as I said, within the parish of Barnstaple. Just for context, the parish started work on the neighbourhood plan in 2016, when they designated their parish as a neighbourhood planning area. And before drafting their policies, they undertook a significant amount of engagement with the local community, and then undertook formal consultation on a draft plan last year. Following this consultation, the parish council considered the responses and made changes they considered necessary before formally submitting it to the Devon Council. At that stage, we undertook another consultation. So there's been lots of consultation on this before sending it off to the neighbourhood plan examiner. I think it's important just to highlight that the policies in the plan are at the discretion of the neighbourhood planning group, so the parish council. They can choose to have a wide-ranging number of policies, and want to have 43 submitted, 43 to Devon Council, or they can just have a couple of specific policies. So that's within their gift to decide what areas they want to concentrate on. And as I said, Barnstaple had 43 policies in their plan on a range of matters, which they grouped into the natural and built environments, the economy, and then it has a specific section on housing matters. So paragraphs 4.7, 4.8 of the agenda item set out what the examiner was required to consider, and his report is attached to Appendix A to item 17 on your agenda. Very briefly, the examiner has concluded that there are some modifications which are necessary to ensure that the neighbourhood plan meets basic conditions, which is what plan is tested against. And I think it's just worth highlighting the comment the examiner made when he said the wider community and Barnstaple Parish Council have spent time and energy in identifying issues and objectives that they wish to be included in their plan, and this sits at the heart of the localism agenda. And I would certainly echo his comments as opposed to how dedicated the Water Neighbourhood Plan steering group has been over the past few years. It is a big task for any parish council to undertake. There's a lot of work, and it's not just writing the neighbourhood plan. There's lots of other documents and reports they need to prepare to go with it. So it is a big task. So it's now, as I said, it's now for the council to decide whether to accept the examiner's proposals. The examiner's proposed modifications, and therefore for the plan to proceed to a referendum for the area of Barnstaple Parish. The full list of recommendations are set out in the report. Do you want me to go through them? Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Spear.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to thank Liz for her very detailed report and thank you for her comments about Parish Council and the steering group. I won't repeat what she said. She's gone through the process. In those 7 years, as she says, so much time and effort has gone into it. Parish councillors and members of the public in Thornton put so much time and effort into it, as Liz says. And of course, council officers as well, many hours into this. They've been a great help to us in the steering group. So I would especially like to thank Liz and her policy team for all the work they have done. It's now quite often being referred to as a labour of love, Chairman, and I think that's what it is. And I'd like to move all those recommendations within the report, please.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Bell. All in favour? Anyone against? Any abstentions? Thank you very much, Liz. Thank you. Right, members, we will now go back to item 11, Leaders' Report, Councillor Root's report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The report as it stands is my first report, and obviously not being in office that long. You'll see information, members will have read it, so it is what it is. Yes.
Councillor Warden.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment on how pleased I am to see what our leader has been doing as he's taken over. He's obviously been extremely active since taking on the job, and it's good to get a report of what he's doing. Thank you.
Thank you. All in favour to note report? Thank you very much. Item 12, questions by members. Questions to the leader or the chair of a committee submitted under Part 4 Council Procedure Rules, paragraph 10.4 of the Constitution.
Yeah, we've got the three that are tabled, Chair. So the first question was from Councillor Bell, and I guess the answer is provided on the paperwork. And the question is there a supplemental question? That doesn't have to.
Sorry, happy with the question.
Sorry, could you stand, please, Councillor Bell? Thank you. Oh, sorry. Are you not able to? If you're not able to, I do apologise.
I do apologise. I can stand. Thank you, Chair. My only supplemental question was just with regards the feeling. It was as much a backup, really. As we've seen, Devon County Council do have some problems with their funding at the moment. They are having consultation periods on a number of subjects. Consultation on homelessness has been withdrawn for the time being and will be reissued. But it is important to remember that if they do consult, if they do decide to withdraw funding, then there will simply be a drop in funding for permanent services. This recommendation would be that a more permanent and fairer, more funded solution was found. I just want to back that up, really.
Lovely, thank you. I believe the leader has already sent a letter as well.
Yes.
Thank you. And the other question was from Councillor Walker.
Yes, I do have a supplementary, thank you, Chair. It's what else is North Devon Council doing to tackle the shortage of housing in the district?
Okay, thank you very much. Even though 90% of all planning applications in Barnstaple town centre have been approved since the Liberal Democratic COVID administration in 2019, we know that housing remains a massive issue locally. That's why North Devon Council is providing gap funding for the community land trust projects for rented social housing in Cullercoombe, Ilfracombe and Paracoombe. We are also supporting the CLT project in Ilfracombe, allocating them £250,000 contingency fund. In total, North Devon Council is helping Northfield that of 9 community land trusts, helping them to pursue their goals of creating the rented social housing that is so badly needed in our area. And in my council report previously about visiting businesses in Ilfracombe, manufacturing, TDK Lambert, it is a massive issue for them to retain key workers. And I know, Dan, you know this, being the mayor. This community land trust are so important to communities, not only for viability, but also for the economical input that it brings, a sustainable funding to businesses so that the areas can prosper. So North Devon Council is doing rather a lot at the moment, and we will continue to take every funding opportunity that comes from government.
Thank you. And our third question.
That's really good. Thank you.
And our third question comes from Councillor Orange.
Yeah. I do have a supplementary question. What effect will the closures have on the people of Northern Devon?
But you can see in the report, I will be making a statement. I asked all councillors, the ticket office in Barnstaple is a gateway to many people who don't have public transport, especially in a lot of rural areas. So I would go on and do the link and send in fact, could we ask the clerk to send the link for the ticket office consultation, because it closes next week. That's why we haven't been able to do a formal response. So I will do one personally, but if everyone else could go on and say how vitally important it is, you know, people coming in, tourists coming into business. I've long campaigned in the, not the last administration, but the one before that. I put a motion to this council that got supported that we should have seen at least one direct train from Barnstaple to London. And we did have one come up in 6125, came into Barnstaple, didn't it? You remember? And he did the trip to London. And I think if we had one train from Barnstaple to London and one in the evening again from London back to Barnstaple, it would be a real big bonus. But I think that it will have a real, the government at the moment has been an onslaught with cuts. We fought to retain banks, post offices, pharmacies, all the dentists, all the lot. But make no mistake, closing that ticket office will affect the economic prosperity of Northern Devon, especially Barnstaple. Will disadvantage many elderly who, when they've got both sight or they're colourblind, to use the ticket machine is very difficult. I'm told from people who are visually impaired. And I will do whatever I can to keep the ticket office open so that Barnstaple retains its place as a sub-regional centre. It's so important that we get, and I've seen some of the figures, county council colleague who has seen some figures. You know, Barnstaple has a massive percentage of people who go in and use that ticket office compared to any other ones that are on the proposed closure list. And I think it's really important for us as community representatives to have an input in there, because it's going to be devastating for North Devon if that ticket office closes. So please let's get on to GWR Great Western Railway, and say how important this is for the North Devon community. It's really important that we turn into the office.
Thank
Hopefully
you.
that'll do for you, Councillor Orange.
Thank you. Right, item 13. Performance of financial management quarter for 2022 to 2023, page 29 to 96. Number A, report of the Policy Development Committee to receive the report of the Policy Development Committee held on July 2023. Councillor Spear to report.
Thank you, Chair. I know you received a report of the Policy Development Committee held on the 6th of July 2023, Chair.
Thank you. And report of meeting the Strategy and Resources Committee, pages 97 to 98. Councillor Room to report.
I propose that we receive the report as set out in item B.
Councillor Price.
Chair, I just wanted to highlight to colleagues that this is the first performance report that's come in this form. And I'm really, really pleased to see the second part of it, which is about practical things that we're actually doing, not just the finance. But what I did want to mention tonight, and Ian obviously wrote his report before last week, was the fantastic work of our team in the Water Sports Centre in Uppercombe. If you haven't been to see it, I mean, I know Dan, it was a fantastic day, and I know, Chair, you were there as always. It is an amazing facility, so please, if you haven't seen it, go and see it. And I have today sent a message to Helen Bond to say, please, you know, from colleagues, can you make sure that all of your staff that are involved in it realise how appreciative we are of it. The second thing I want to mention, and it's not always a very sexy sort of area, and that's planning policy and local plans. Our team have been hard at work these last few weeks defending a planning appeal from a hostile plan application last week. And I think it's worth noting tonight the huge amount of work that was put in by waiting and lobbying. Waiting too long. Deny. But Chair, talking about affordable housing, unless you've got a local plan that's robust and you deliver the sites in the right way, you are not going to produce the levels of affordable housing that we desperately need. And we've got lots of hostile applications outside of our, so it's fingers crossed when we get results, probably not till the early autumn. I just want to say thank you to Sarah Jane and all the local plans team, both here in North Devon and Torridge, because it was a partnership effort at the public inquiry last week. But just to say, I think at the moment this report goes to strategy and policy, but I'd like to think that in future we could highlight some of these priorities to actually get more across to members that aren't involved in the portfolios. So we can try to get the agenda to allow that to happen in the future. So I can use this excuse to say.
Yeah, thought so. Thank you. Can I have a mover, please, for both of those reports? Thank you. Seconder? Thank you. All in favour? Anyone against? Any abstentions? Thank you. Item 14. Annual Treasury Management Report 2022-23, pages 99 to 110. Report of the Policy Development Committee. Councillor Spear to report.
Thank you, Chair. I move we received the report of the Policy Development Committee of the 6th of July.
Thank you. Thank you. I just want to say, Councillor Prowse, are you leaving?
Yes, sorry.
Just wanted to say to everyone, Councillor Wilkinson's already left, but it's had a very special birthday, and I was surprised he turned up tonight. And Councillor Prowse's wedding anniversary tonight.
Oh.
Your excuse. Sorry. Right, thank you, Councillor Spear. And it's nice, yeah. Well, I did check whether she was a bit cross at Councillor Wilkinson. Right, item B on that, Councillor Room to report.
Just flabbergasted, 48 years without even born then. I mean, that we received the report of the meeting, Strategy and Resources Committee on the July 2020.
Thank you. Can I have a mover, please? Seconder. Thank you. All in favour? Anyone against? Any abstentions? Thank you. Right, 15 we've done. Item 16, statutory pay policy 2023, pages 121 to 128. CEO Ken Miles to report. Thank you.
For those members that are returning or have returned, you'll notice that this is a report that comes every year. It's a report that has to come to you under statute, and you need to approve that pay policy for the coming year. So the document that's in front of you, pay policy, it sets out the council's policy on remuneration of staff, principally senior staff and chief officers, who within this authority are myself, the Director of Resources, John Triggs, the heads of service and the monitoring officer. Those are the chief officers to which this policy relates. And the policy sets out the remuneration of those staff either by reference to a pay grade or where there is no pay band to a specific salary where it's a spot salary, i.e. a one-off salary which has been set. In my view, there's lots of ways of looking at pay, and you'll note from the report that for the purposes of that report, the recommended approach is to compare the highest salary, which would be myself, against the median salary and then look at the multiple. And in this particular case, the multiple is 3.91. That means that my salary is 3.91 times the median salary within the council. And that's how all councils look at that. It's how it's laid down in statute. The point to note, however, I think is that that's now come down from last year. Last year it was 4.08. And it'll likely come down further as the pay award is agreed hopefully later this year. And that multiple is reducing because the pay awards that have been agreed over the last couple of years have really targeted the lower grades within the council. So as you move up through the grades, the pay increases have been less. And what we're seeing as a result of that is a bunching up of the salaries. And this is why I wanted to go into a little bit more depth today than you would otherwise normally get. We're seeing that squeezing up of the salary grades. And that's been exacerbated by the increases in living wage. So as they've been introduced by the government, those people within our organisation who are affected by those increases, their salaries have gone up, which is great news. But for an organisation, it presents difficulties because that means that some people are ending up on salaries that are the same as their supervisors or managers. And so there has to be some shift up through the organisation as a result of that. Otherwise, it really affects the efficiency of the organisation. And that's something we've really got to keep an eye on over the next couple of years when those increases come through. I think as well, pay also needs to be looked at, not just through the lens of that multiplier, but also through the lens of this being a competitive marketplace. We've all seen the headlines around HGV drivers, planning officers and other professions, how difficult they are to come by. But it spreads right through the organisation, right up to senior level. We are competing against private industry. So planning is a really good example of that, where private planning practices taking people straight out of university, they're not even coming to us anymore, which was a traditional route. But we're also competing against local authorities. We're all competing for the same graduates, we're all competing for the same staff. We see quite a lot of movement of staff. And for us as a district council, a rural district council, it's quite difficult because what we used to do was rely on staff that wanted to move to the area and then get a job with us because we're a good employer, relatively well paid. And so it's an attractive proposition. But what we're now seeing, that people move into the area, but because of mobile working and working, they can carry on working where they were previously in Bristol or Exeter or London or wherever it might be. So that also presents another challenge. You'll refer to paragraph 3.3 of the policy. That talks about the balance between value for money and being able to recruit. And that's exactly what I'm talking about. There has to be that balance. And we're seeing that sort of wage inflation, if you like, starting to hit us now, because to be competitive, we do have to pay more. If we want to attract the staff, we do have to pay more. And like I said, that spreads right through the organisation. Paragraph 3.3 refers to senior pay being consistent with similar organisations. That's one of the tests that you've set yourself. Now, as your head of service, as your head of paid service, I feel that I have to say I don't believe that is quite the case at the moment. I think there's a little bit of work to be able to do outside of this report to be able to report to you next year to say that we've got that consistency. I don't think we have at the moment. So there are some issues. But as I said, that's going to be the subject of further discussions, or it should be the subject of further discussions outside of this report. For the purpose of this report, the multiplier as it is, as set out in the report, and I'd suggest that members, happy to take any questions, but I suggest that members adopt the pay policy as is, Chair.
Councillor Roux.
Chair, thank you for the report, Ken, Mr. Miles. It's a really in-depth report, and like you said, there is some work to do. And as leader, I will make sure that any work that we do on this subject gets reported back to councillors for scrutiny. But I would like to move the recommendation as set out in 3.1.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder?
2.1.
All in favour? Anyone against? Any abstentions? Thank you. Item 18. Local Authority Housing Fund LAHF, pages 197 to 202. Report by CEO Ken Miles. Report.
Thank you, Chair. Members, the Local Authority Housing Fund is a national fund which was designed to give councils funding to secure accommodation for people in the country that have come to this country through the Ukrainian and the Afghan resettlement schemes. The scheme works, it provides up to 40% of the capital to provide a particular number of houses for that use. And the houses that you supply as a result of this scheme can also be used for temporary accommodation if the need through those schemes isn't actually met at that particular time. The members might recall within the last council that round one, funding was released back in March this year, and the council through strategy and resources voted to accept that funding, and that amounted to just over £1 million. And it also agreed to fund the remaining 60% match funding through a £2 million fund that it set up to purchase temporary accommodation not long before that. That funding was intended to deliver 9 units of accommodation, including a larger property, and those units of accommodation on the round one have to be delivered by the 30th of November this year. We are on course to achieve that, as we've purchased or completed on 2 properties so far, and we've got a further 7 properties with offers on the table, which are going through at various stages through the legal process. So we're confident that by the 30th of November, we will have completed on those 9 properties. Round 2 of the funding has just been released, and is in exactly the same way as round 1. Each authority within the country has been given an allocation, and it's for the authority to opt into that allocation. So in our case, the round 2 funding is £552,000, and the requirements are exactly the same, that the local authority has to match 60% of the capital funding to access that funds. What I'd also say is that we've managed to secure a further £215,000 from Devon County Council. If members recall the Homes for Ukraine scheme, which was the scheme where people from Ukraine were matched with families in our area, funding was given to local authorities to support them. An element of that funding was retained by the county council because there was a fear that once those placements, or if those placements broke down, that there would be an impact on local authorities' homes and services. So there was a central pot retained, which could be used to parachute into district councils to help them out with any homes provision. A lot of those fears haven't materialised, and so what the county council have done is to divide up that retention and divide it amongst the district councils. So we've received another £215,000 from that. The aims of round 2 differ slightly. Under the previous scheme, the specific aims were to provide accommodation for the Afghan and the Ukrainian schemes. In this particular case, is to support the Afghan bridging, to support the Afghan families that are currently in bridging accommodation, and also to ease the wider homelessness pressures. So those are the 2 objectives of the scheme. The funding will be expected to deliver a further 3 units of accommodation to use for the Afghan scheme, and a further 1 unit of accommodation to be used for general temporary accommodation, i.e. to ease that homelessness burden. The match funding, the 60% match funding, can be made up of the funds that we receive from Devon County Council, so about £215,000, but also the remainder of that £2 million fund that you set up for temporary accommodation. There's still enough in there to be able to use for match funding for this scheme. We've identified properties that can be used for this purpose, so we've already gone out and looked to see whether we'd be able to comply with the requirements. And we've also identified the resources needed to deliver those. And the chances are we will need to go out and use external solicitors because of the the implications on our team. As a result, we took an urgent decision, or I took an urgent decision to submit an expression of interest for the scheme. That doesn't commit us in any way, but now it's for members to decide whether we do go ahead and enter the scheme. If we do, we need to enter into a memorandum of understanding with government, and we'll only do so if we're satisfied that we can comply with the terms of that. But I would say, Chair, if I may, although we've got the resources to complete on these properties, it may well be that to actually manage the properties on an ongoing basis, we may need to come back and look for additional resources, because this will be 13 properties that we're taking on, managing this temporary accommodation, and that does take an awful lot of time and resources, which hasn't previously been built into the housing service. But that was the subject of a separate report. But the recommendations are set out in the report, Chair, and I've urged members to move ahead with it. It's a good scheme. We know the properties that we want to purchase, and I think we can do good things for those properties.
Thanks, Lorraine. Thank you.
For me, Chair, it's a no-brainer. We're getting offered by the government £552,000, and we've got funding already to match it, so we can get more loans, which is affecting all our communities. And yes, it has to be, some of it will be for this budget fund for the Afghan scheme. But after that, the local authorities can have those zones as well. So it's gone through the S&R process. We had a talk about this, and we agreed as a committee that we should get an memorandum of understanding. But for me, it's one of those issues that we talked about earlier. If the government delivers £553,000, we'd be stupid not to take it. I'm happy to recommend it to councillors.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Thank you. All in favour? Anyone against? Any abstentions? Thank you, Carrie. Right, item 19. Strategic Grant 2023-24 Ring and Ride and Shopper Mobility Services, pages 203 to 206. Adam, take to report.
Chair. Council at this meeting back in February approved an annual strategic grant of 14,720 to Go North Devon for the provision of shop mobility and the Ring and Ride service for North Devon. However, trustees of Go North Devon took the decision to dissolve on the 30th of September and cease all services by the 18th of August. A proposal has been put forward by Mid Devon Mobility to take on the Ring and Ride service for an initial 6-month period, covering the same area, schedule of service and fares as Go North Devon. The same telephone number to book the service will also be used. In terms of shop mobility, Age Concern Barnstaple and North Devon have also submitted a proposal to provide 4 electric scooters and 4 static wheelchairs for public hire from their offices at Green Lanes. Go North Devon have agreed to gift the minibus to Mid Devon Mobility and 4 electric scooters to Age Concern. The recommendation in 2.1 of your report is to pay the remaining strategic grant of 5,000 to Mid Devon Mobility for the North Devon Ring and Ride service from September 23 to March 24. The recommendation in 2.2 is to pay the remaining strategic grant 2,360 to Age Concern Barnstaple and North Devon for the shop mobility over the same period. The recommendation in 2.3 is asking council to consider an outside body appointment to Mid Devon Mobility. There are no resource implications from approving these recommendations as all within the original grant allocation.
Thank you. Councillor Room.
Madam Chair, I'd just like to declare an interest because you mentioned age concern and I'm a reason trustee in age concern.
Thank you. Councillor Trinos.
What a pity, thank you. What a pity going off Devon is bitten the dust. Because it's did such valuable work over the years, and I was always afraid this might happen, and now it has. But this report outlines the best way we can go forward from here using money we've got available and other people that know what they're doing and providing the service. So I'm happy to move the recommendations.
Thank you. Councillor Lever.
I'm going to second that.
Thank you. All in favour?
Madam Chair, we haven't done 2-3 of that report, so I don't think it would be right for us to vote until that's covered.
Can I explain that?
Yeah. So yeah,
Sorry, I
2.3
do apologise.
is the consideration of an outside body appointment to Mid Devon Mobility.
Sorry, Chairman, I didn't clear that in my mind.
Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Yes, sorry, we have to actually appoint someone, but this it would still be because it's a Mid Devon. No, we still would. Councillor Room.
Yes. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, John.
Sorry, it's Councillor Trinos.
Yes,
Thank you.
Councillor John. Councillor Louisa York was on trustee at representative, sorry, no. Yes. And you formed a lot of knowledge there. And I think there's some continuity. I think it'd be good for you to be on there. We acknowledge that you put it. Everybody agrees. Because I think it's if you agree, because I do that. But I think that you've done a lot of work there, and you know some of the problems that the people that the environment we might be able to discuss that sort of that intelligence. If you have, but it's up to you to say yes or no.
Yeah, I'd be more than happy to remain on. I've met with all the trustees recently and with members of the Mid Devon Council, Mid Devon Mobility, who are taking on the service. They're coming at it with a whole fresh new approach. So hopefully, where they've been hard to reach people, hopefully they can found and get to use service. It's basically gone downhill since COVID. I think people have found different ways to go shopping and move around. I think there's an element of just people being scared to get back in a social situation. So as you know, I mean, cancer care car expanded as well. So basically their income was dropping quite highly. Yeah, so yeah, I'd be happy to remain out if you're happy for me to continue to go, assuming the meetings are at the appropriate time and all they're flexible enough to actually allow me to attend. Okay.
Thank you. Right, I've got 3 recommendations here. We can either take all 3 with Councillor York as a nominee, or do people want to split them between 1 and 2 and 3? Oh, sorry, could you stand up, please? Thank you.
Madam Chair, may we visit these en bloc?
En bloc, the 3 together. Everyone in agreement? Thank you. That's right. Yeah, but sometimes, Councillor Petrino, sometimes someone might object to 1, and that's where you would split them. But if everyone's happy to take all 3 en bloc, then I'm happy. Councillor Lever.
Can I second taking 3 en bloc? And I know that Louisa is hugely knowledgeable and will give me chair. And will continue to really serve the client group extremely well. So I'm very happy to second.
Thank you.
Take it en bloc.
I'm glad you said that because I know she does astounding work up there as well. And I always say if it's not broken, don't try and fix it for something else. So yeah, right. All in favour? Thank you. That looks unanimous. Any abstentions? Any against? Thank you. Carried. Thank you very much. Okay, item 20, appointment of honorary aldermen, pages 207 to 208, and 10 miles to report.
This is a really simple report, Chair.
it's brought to you today to ask whether you wish to consider appointing honorary alderman. The reason we're bringing a report to ask you that is because if you wish to appoint alderman, then there has to be an extraordinary council meeting set up. So if you give an indication that you do wish to consider appointing, we'll ask the group leaders to go away, have a chat about who might be appointed, and then come back to an extraordinary meeting. Simple as.
Thank you. One thing I will say following on with that, especially for the new councillors, is when we have an extraordinary, it's not on a separate date. It'll be on the same time as the full council, but it'll be before the full council meeting. So it won't be on a separate date, won't take up any more time in your diary. Might need to come in a little bit earlier, but that's when it normally happens. Councillor Lever.
Thank you, Chair. I absolutely think that we should be, I mean, I'd like to propose that we accept the recommendation. I mean, I think the number of councillors who have served for many years, and not only their own communities, but actually the population of North Devon. And I think it is an honour to have served with them. And so absolutely, I would like to propose this.
Thank you. So, Councillor Knight.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a question then to Mr. Miles. Is it not possible to extend this to include staff? I think you know why I might ask that context of that question. Because you know, I'm not a long-serving councillor, and I'm not Joe Biden, so I'm very unlikely to be considered to be an alderman. But having said that, there are members of staff who might be appropriate. There you go.
Yeah. No, unfortunately, it's not.
It's just I didn't mean you.
No, it is just the past councillors.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Councillor Jones, you had your hand up just now.
Oh, second.
Right, thank you. Councillor Trinos.
No, I just want to say.
Oh, you're just waving. Right, thank you. Right, we have a mover, we have a seconder. All in favour? Thank you. Anyone against? Any abstentions? Thank you very much. Right, item 21, outside bodies appointment amendments. Number A, Bridge Trust to consider the appointment of Councillor Howard Booth to replace Councillor R. Knight on the Bridge Trust for the life of council, and that attendance at meetings being improved duty. Now, I know there's some controversy on me because I'm actually on Bridge Trust myself, but I'm actually going to ask Councillor Peter Lever to explain why.
Thank you very much, Chair. I have been on the Bridge Trust. I'm no longer a trustee, so I'm perfectly able to speak on that.
I have to declare an interest. I am a trustee still.
I must say I'm delighted to see that the Bridge Trust is playing its part in the cultural development and cultural future of North Devon. And there are obviously great plans in place for one of the Bridge Trust buildings. And I'd like to propose Councillor Howard Booth. I think his experience in working life and his interest in the arts would make him an ideal person to sit on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bushow.
I'd like to second that.
Thank you. All in favour? Anyone against? Any abstentions? Thank you, Karen. And item B, North Devon Locality Committee to consider the appointment of 2 members to the North Devon Locality Committee rather than 3 members for the life of council, and that attendance at meetings be an improved duty. At annual council on the 18th of May 2023, councillors D. Knight, R. Knight and Spear were appointed to the Locality Committee. So this is to seek a mover and seconder of the appointment of 2 members to the committee. So I'm taking it then that one would have to come off. Councillor Roos.
This committee's never actually ever met. So I feel like I'm talking to dinner. It's never ever met. But I spoke to Ricky earlier and he's okay. So if we can just have Councillor Spear and Councillor David Knight to remain on the committee.
Thank you. Councillor Caroline Lever.
Thank you, Chair. As county councillor, am I supposed to declare a personal interest in this because it is a county council thing? Anyway, I will second that. It is the locality committee is something that we have been waiting for with bated breath. We should have this something really interesting for us to discuss. But I was looking through Devon County Council website only yesterday to see what's happening in the rest of the county. And are we as North Devon, are we specially gifted in not having this committee? No, we are not. Across the county, the locality committee happens once every 2.5 years in some places, and it is very, very, very specific. My guess is that if ever we get to a point in North Devon where we have a North Devon locality committee, that probably everybody will have some knowledge of the subject, and I would encourage you to come along to the locality committee if it meets and make your views known. So I would like to second the proposal that that is on the table that has been made.
Thank you. Right, we have a mover, we have a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Knight, for seconding that. All in favour? Thank you. Anyone against or any abstentions? Are you against or abstaining? Right, lovely, thank you. Item C on that, Frementon Key Environment Group, following a request from the Frementon Key Environment Group to consider the appointment of one member to the Frementon Key Environment Group and whether the appointment should be an approved duty. Councillor Room.
I would like to move that it's an approved duty, and I think fellow councillors will agree that it needs to be a member from Frementon, because it's about Frementon. And I'd like to propose Councillor Neil.
Councillor Room, it's not in Frementon.
But it's there in Frementon.
It's not in Frementon.
Okay.
It's not in Frementon. Yes, just
Yeah, but I would just like to nominate Councillor Neil.
Do I have a seconder? Sorry. Is there anyone else here that's the parish council of Frementon? Councillor Denton, thank you. Yeah, sure.
Can I second?
Yes, you may. So we have a mover, we have a seconder, all in favour? Anyone against? Any abstentions? Thank you. Item D, Rural Services Network, following requests from the Rural Services Network to consider the appointment of one member and one substitute member to the Rural Services Network and whether the appointment should be an approved duty. Councillor Wardy.
I used to be on this, but I'd be very happy if Councillor Lever and Councillor Bell as a substitute. I think that both of them are very interested in this particular.
Could you identify which Councillor Lever, please? We have two.
One on my right here.
Councillor Peter Lever, is it? No.
Caroline.
Councillor Caroline Lever. They were both on this. So Councillor Caroline Lever and Councillor Graham Bell, correct? Okay, do I have a seconder? Thank you. All in favour? Any abstentions? Anyone against? Item 22. Change of date of future council meetings. Consider whether to change the date of the meeting of council.
All of it, Chairman.
Sorry?
All of it, not laughing.
Councillor Lane, if you notice, that's why I stopped.
Oh.
So the noise would stop. Okay? Thank you. Very nice. Change of date of future.
Address the noise by their actual formal name, please.
Yeah.
I would do Councillor Bushell when I am aware of it. Change of date of future council meeting. To consider whether to change the date of the meeting of council that was scheduled to be held on Wednesday, the 27th of September 2023 at 6:30 p.m. to be held on Wednesday, the 4th of October 2023 at 6:30 p.m. instead, due to the unavailability of PETROC as a venue for the meeting. So basically, it's not available here. It means we'd have to go back to the other place if we wanted to keep the same date, or if just for the sake of, I think it's a week, back here. Councillor Busho,
Propose that we go with this recommendation.
Second.
thank you. All in favour? Anyone against? Any abstentions? Councillor Lane, are you not voting at all?
I did. Walk up, Chair.
I was, excuse me, only for rudeness, I was actually looking. Thank you. Thank you. Right, the mover was councillor Busho and the seconder was councillor Roux.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, and that was carried. So then the next meeting will be on the 4th of October 2023 here at 6:25. Thank you. Item 23, we normally do, does anyone want to take these on block, except there is on item E, published on as a supplementary document on Modern Gov. So everyone's seen that. There's a room.
I'll move on block motion.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Thank you. All in favour? Thank you. Anyone against? Any abstentions? Thank you. Thank you everyone for coming tonight. And I'm sorry about the sun, but I think as the year goes on, it'll get less. I think it's while it's going around. I noticed it's in some of your eyes, so I'm sorry about that.